be applied. So thank you for allowing me to be here to speak in her stead. I have been acting as her surrogate around the state, and that's allowed me to speak for her, which I'm not usually allowed to do. So I hope that I don't drive anybody away from her. If you're supporting her, I'll do my best to answer all your questions. What I'd like to do is start not on Diane per se. In fact, I guess I better tell you who I am very quickly. Diane and I have been married for 38 years. I met her when she was 16. I was a 19-year-old Marine on a blind date with another girl. And we didn't start dating until 11 years later. By the time we started dating, she had 3 children. She was a single mom. The week I married her, I adopted the 3 children. We got married on Friday, June 13th, 1980, and Sunday was Father's Day. So I got a wife, 3 children, and Father's Day all in about 4 or 5 days. And since this is an older crowd, this line will work. I call this my Polaroid family. Young people don't understand that, but this was my instant family. So I am trained as a doctor of legal medicine. My career has been spent in the area of death investigation, although I've worked a great deal with the living. My degree is really in post-mortem death investigation, and I have been involved in many such cases over the years. More recently, and in fact, for about the last 6 or 7 years, I've become very much devoted to looking at the foundation of our nation and our founding fathers and what their intention was in creating this unique nation. Diane was born in public housing. She worked her way through college. She's worked her way all through what she has become. I wrote a book about her. It's on Amazon. It's called Unstoppable. This went up about a month ago. But this book is about Diane and about how she was born into a family with a mother with a 6th grade education, or excuse me, a 9th grade education. Her father has a 6th grade education. And Diane has worked her way to become who she is today as we know her. My family aspired to live in public housing. We were very poor. My father was on a ship sunk off of Okinawa in World War II. My mother and father served in World War II. Diane's father served out in the Marshall Islands, World War II. I say my father was safe physically, but not spiritually. He was an alcoholic. I talked about it in some of the book. Very abusive. Would disappear. At the age of 12, I was 6 foot tall, and I went to work to feed my mother, my sister, and my 3 brothers. I tell people I worked my way through elementary school, middle school, high school. I graduated on a Thursday night. I joined the Marines on a Friday morning. Because I'm a combat veteran of Vietnam, I got an extra year of GI Bill, which got me my doctorate. Now to get back, and people who know Diane and I, they say, you're the American dream. And we came here to Tennessee with very little back in 1986. Very quickly in 1990, I came to join Vanderbilt University. I'm still on faculty there. But in 1990, I took my program off campus, borrowed $70,000 to start a business with 4 people, became a company of 1,000 worth $700 million. That's quite a story. And while I was doing that, we were also building a commercial real estate company worth another $60 million. This is the American dream. We're surrounded by opportunity. Not everybody gets a chance to achieve what we have achieved, but the opportunity is there. Not all end up with the exact opportunities we've enjoyed. But this is a special nation. I brought with me this evening to share with you, before we get into questions, and I can talk a lot more about Diane. I brought 2 foundational documents to our nation with me tonight. I have Thomas Paine's first edition, Common Sense, published in February of 1776. But I also have what I think is the more important document, although Common Sense is a very important document. But I have also the Aiken Bible. The Aiken Bible is the Bible of the Revolutionary War. It was printed in 1782. This Bible is the first Bible printed in the new United States and in the New World. Prior to the Revolutionary War, all Bibles were imported from England. They were taxed. They could not be printed in the New World. There are less than 50 of these Bibles left. I thought there were 12 left in private hands. There may be only about 8 or 9. The rest are in museums. This is the Mahaney copy that is from a Quaker who lived in Pennsylvania. And to my astonishment, Mark Caldwell, who lives up here on the Signal Mountain, he publishes something called the Patriot Post. When I shared this with Mark, Mark was surprised because his family were next door neighbors to the Mahaneys back in the 1700s. It's just an amazingly small world. It just always amazes me. But this Bible is a foundational document to our nation. One of the reasons I acquired this, I actually contracted with a rare bookstore to find an owner so they would sell it to me. I don't tell Diane what I paid for it. This Bible, in 1782, printed by Robert Aiken in Philadelphia, was reviewed by the new United States Congress. It was found to be a faithful reproduction of the King James Version. And our United States Congress recommended this Bible to be read by all citizens of the new United States of America. I got this Bible because when people tell me we were not founded as a Christian nation, I want to say, well, I've got this book, and on pages 4 and 5, there's a congressional resolution that says this Bible is the Bible to be read by Americans. And of course, at that time, the Bible was used for everything. Used for education. And it is the foundation of our medical practices and so much more, our legal system. Thomas Paine's Common Sense, published in 1776, is interesting because it too is full of scripture. Thomas Paine had only been in the United States for a couple of years, 2, 3 years. He was a real firebrand. He helped really rouse up the colonialists to fight England, the most powerful country in the world, to separate us from England. And Thomas Paine, in the opening statement, the opening line of Common Sense, and this is it, published in 1776, February. This is the first edition copy. And the first line of the Common Sense, what it says, is a wrong idea thought right for too long is very hard to undo. What they're saying is a lie that becomes a truth is very hard to undo. And isn't that where we're living today? Eternal truths have become lies, and lies have become the truth to our children. These documents are important. They speak to what our founders intended. But beyond that, the Declaration of Independence was signed by 56 people who were all Christians. You know, our immediate past president said there were Muslims at our foundation of our nation. I have yet to find a reference to a single Muslim who helped create this nation. All 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Christians. They were associated with an established Christian church. Here's something that most people don't know. In 1776, when the Declaration of Independence was signed, Harvard University was 140 years old. Princeton was 75 years old. We had 15 institutions of higher learning in this nation that were all Christian founded. Every one of them. That's the story of our country. When people talk about the Second Amendment, they say, oh, that's not true that the founders intended that we would carry firearms to protect our liberties. They say, well, that you needed to have firearms to fight off the Indians if they kill your deer for dinner. We had a very sophisticated society in 1776. Harvard was 140 years old. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. So, what is the American dream? People tell Diane and I we're the American dream. It's the first 35 words of the second paragraph of the Declaration. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And please notice the pursuit of happiness. It's not the guarantee of happiness. Not everybody gets all the same stuff. What you do is you have the opportunity, provided we retain this as a republic. So, my mission that I've been on for the last 6-7 years is to go around talking about these issues. And how are we going to rouse up the citizens of this nation to defend the republic that is now 242 years old? No other republic has lasted this long. Every year that we celebrate the July 4th, we celebrate a new record. In fact, the average, I listened to David Barton last night, the average longevity of a government is 17 years. Now we're at 242 years of a stable government. The last thing I'd like to mention is Abraham Lincoln. In 1837, future President Abraham Lincoln spoke to the men of Lyceum in Illinois. And what he said to those men was, even then, in 1837, America is too strong to be defeated from an enemy outside our country. We can only fall from an enemy within. This is the danger we face. We have individuals, we have now open communists, Marxists, we have open individuals, socialists, who are looking to destroy the Constitution of the United States. And it's up to you and I to save the Republic. It's up to you and I to do what we can do to make sure that when we vote for people, we vote for people who understand this country, people who are Christian and who live their Christian faith, that they live their Christian faith. I was up in Washington about 3 months ago with a group of conservative leaders, and from the back of the room, an old fellow from Mississippi stood up, and he said, I'm no longer going to donate, and I'm no longer going to put my vote into somebody that's made a promise. I want to see what they've done. I want to see scars. Show me the battles you've been in. Show me the accomplishments you've had. That can be political or not political. That is what we need to do. Quit listening to promises. Let's look at those who have really done it. You know, Diane is endorsed by the National Right to Life, Tennessee Right to Life. She's endorsed by the Susan B. Anthony list. She's endorsed by the NRA. By the way, I tell people Diane led me to my faith. I was in Vietnam, a man without faith. My undergraduate was at Loyola. I have a Jesuit education. I didn't find my faith. I didn't start my faith journey until the age of 35. Diane brought me to my faith. I took her to the gun range. That was a pretty good trade-off. She's now endorsed by the NRA. She's also endorsed by something called Numbers, which are the folks that follow the immigration laws and how votes go. She has a very rare A+ rating. So this is a woman who's done it. She doesn't just make the promise. I will tell you on SJR 127, which became Yes on 1, her 12 years, she was 6 years in the House here in Tennessee and 6 years in the Senate. She shepherded that for 12 years to get it onto the ballot. And then she and I put up $500,000 to get that passed, because somebody had to step up and put up the money to promote it and to get people to vote for it. Planned Parenthood outspent us at least 4-1. But Diane is committed, we are committed to the issue of life and to the other traditional Judeo-Christian values of this nation. So there's a lot I could tell you about Diane, but it's all in the book. If you buy the book, if there are any profits ever, which I doubt there will be, but if there are, they're all going to nonprofits that we've selected. That one deals with military suicide, another with teenage suicide, another with teenage pregnancy, another with after-school program with at-risk kids. But it's on Amazon.com. It's at Barnes & Noble. And should you take a read, it'll tell you the story of Diane. And there's a lot of stories I could tell you, but then you would buy the book. And that would be good. So, what I'm really here, I think, to to do is to answer questions that you may have. And I'm known as Dr. Black and White. I tell things as they are. When I was running a company of 1,000 people, I had 200 scientists, I had a sales team, I had a accounting department, and trust me, it was a difficult crowd to control. But the one thing my employees always knew is I would tell them what right and wrong is. We ran that business under biblical principles, and they knew where I stood on right and wrong. And if you did not provide respect and civility to your co-worker, you were gone. And my reputation is sometimes a little harsh as a Marine, but I don't like to play around in the gray area, in the shadows. So if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you a straight answer. I'm also, as a forensic scientist, I've testified over 1,000 times. I've testified on 6 continents all over the world. And I'll be happy to come under your questioning here and answer whatever questions you may have. Yes, sir.
Let me give you the mic here.
Yeah, speak up loudly because I've got bad ears.
I'll do the best I can. Thank you for coming, Dr. Black. The gubernatorial campaign is unfortunately taking a pretty negative turn in these last days and weeks, which I regret. I think most of us in East Tennessee don't like that kind of campaigning. One of the worst things I've seen written against Representative Black is about that she was a never Trump person. And that's not consistent with what I know of it, and I wondered what you could say about that, please.
Thank you for the question. In fact, I was answering that question earlier today. Here's the story. This came out of the last election cycle when Diane ran for re-election against Joe Carr. And Joe Carr put out a story that Diane and Dave were at Sea Island, Georgia. And we were at Sea Island, Georgia for a conference that Diane was invited to for the American Enterprise Institute. And the American Enterprise Institute wanted Diane to tell her story. She was born in public housing. Now she meets with the President of the United States in the Oval Office. It was a great meeting. It was a meeting for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we got there Friday evening. We were there all day Saturday. I got the thrill of sitting next to Dick Cheney on the bus over to dinner. Really great meeting. A lot of great people. We met the Dalai Lama. It was very interesting. We flew out at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning because Diane had agreed to teach Sunday school for our pastor who was on vacation. Unbeknownst to us and unrelated to the American Enterprise Institute, on the same island, on Sunday afternoon, was a meeting of people who were opposed to Trump. But we weren't there. Our pastor can attest to that. We've provided the tickets that we use to get home as evidence to talk radio, but they choose to ignore it. The only thing that's truthful is we were on the planet Earth. But it is, beyond that, a total fabrication. During the election cycle, I know Reince Priebus, who was running the RNC, and I was in constant conversation with Reince Priebus during the whole primary season. And during the whole primary season, Reince Priebus is telling me, Dave, Donald Trump is an honorable man. People who work for him never want to quit. They want to work for Donald Trump and his family. And he will do what he says he will do. I was a Trump fan before he won the primary. But in principle, because of Reince Priebus, who has known him very well for many years. But the story that we or Diane is a never-Trumper is absolutely false. The president knows that. The president would not give Diane a shout-out when he was in Nashville for the rally, if he thought that. So it's one of those things, if you've been in politics for 20 years, the lies tend to stack up. And there are a number of falsehoods out there. I don't want to take this evening trying to explain all of the things that are stated about Diane and Dave, but it comes with the territory. And if you don't have thick skin, if you can't stand the sight of your own blood, don't get into politics. My God, it's ugly. And I will tell you too, real quickly, 2 weeks ago they sent me a copy of a grand jury decision in Chattanooga to go out and arrest a man who's threatened twice to kill Diane. Now, I will tell you, over the time we've been in politics, we've had FBI investigate death threats, we've had Capitol Police, we've been protected by Tennessee State Troopers, we've been protected by the Sumner County Sheriff, by Hendersonville Police, by the Gallatin Police. We've had people on our property. We've had people come into our church. We have hundreds of death threats. Hundreds of death threats. If you're a Christian and you stand up for Christian values today, you are a target. When I was in Vietnam, I was at Da Nang, we were a target. I got shot at, took rockets, small arms for 13 months because we were a fixed target. Diane's a fixed target. And they're always coming at me. It's just a part of the game today. And unfortunately, what we saw with Steve's police is somebody was successful. But you have to be vigilant. But you also have to be bold and not afraid. And that's one of the things I admire about my wife. I tell people she has the compassion of a nurse, she is a nurse, but she has the mettle of a Marine. She will not back down. And the one thing you got to have in politics, you got to have thick skin, but you also got to be tough enough to make the tough decisions. That's not easy, to stand by your principles. I'm sorry.
A very personal interest in this particular subject. I'd like to know where Diane stands on it. I'm not on television as often as she is. I am in a commercial for the last 4 or 5 years that talks about proton therapy, and I am the P. You've seen that football commercial. But recently, the legislature passed and vetoed a bill that was overwhelmingly supported by both houses of the legislature that had to do with state employees having an option to choose proton therapy as a radiation treatment for cancer. Blue Cross mostly, which covers about 80% of the state, will treat people who are under the age of 18 and over the age of 65, but not anybody in the middle. And they were trying to pass a bill on that. And Hassan vetoed it. I think he said it was experimental. It was discovered in 1939 when they built the bomb up there in Oak Ridge. So they've been using, and the doctor, you know, that proton is a way of treating radiation. What's Diane's position on that if the legislature passes that again? Do you think she'll sign that bill?
I do not know what the fiscal note may have been on that bill. The fiscal note, I don't know what the fiscal note may have been on that bill. In all candor, Diane and I have not discussed proton therapy, although we know Scotty Hamilton has built a facility in Franklin. And the first I learned of proton therapy was down in Florida. It's outside of my expertise. I will tell you, here's the problem. And the problem really is with reimbursement. And reimbursement is decided by CMS, which is one of those federal agencies that you can never get to in Washington, D.C. And whatever CMS decides for Medicaid, Medicare, then all the other payers follow suit. The payers are very reluctant to embrace new technology. We've been hearing for 20 years about what decoding the human genome was going to do for medicine, personalized medicine. This was going to revolutionize medicine. There's another thing out there called proteomics, far better at identifying disease. It's based upon protein fragments that are specific to a particular disease, where you can far better diagnose than a pathologist. And yet that is not reimbursed. Molecular diagnostics, which is the foundation of a lot of the new personalized medicine diagnoses, which has now been around for about 20 years, or well, maybe more like 15, that's not reimbursed. The problem we have is with a government that gets entrenched with the status quo, and now you've got to convince them to change and to embrace new technologies. One of the worst things about big government is the fact that it's intractable. And you can't get to the people who are the decision makers, who are making the wrong and bad decisions. I will discuss this issue with Diane. Everything I know as a clinical scientist is that proton therapy is I would say it's kind of moving from experimental into application. And I think the resistance to coverage is solely an economic issue. It's a dollar issue. And yet they waste so many dollars on other therapies that are not effective.
Initially, when I was treated 6 years ago, regular radiation therapy was about $40,000, and my proton therapy was about $160,000. I understand the issues. Today, they've reduced the cost, and this particular bill actually covers the cost would be exactly the same for a patient who would choose regular radiation or proton radiation. And as I understand the numbers in the legislature was 29 to 2 and 84 to 14 that passed this particular bill for the state employees. And the part about experimental, they've been using this medical phenomenon, if you will, since Loma Linda's been doing it for almost 40 years. So the issue when they use the word experimental gets a little hairy between doctors who want to do surgery and won't recommend it, as opposed to what may or may not. It doesn't just cure prostate or breast cancer. The way I describe it as a layman, instead of regular beam going all the way through you, it's like a proton, it's like you read that, the laser beam that we can stop at the tumor. For women who are getting breast cancer treatment, for example, it won't hit the heart and lung on the way out the back door, and so forth.
That's a bigger bomb. It's a bigger atomic element that gets stuck into the tissue. Diane is a nurse. She has spent a career saving people's lives. I think you'll be far better off with someone, in terms of all issues healthcare related, if you have a healthcare professional who's there to look at the issues.
Cancer touches
We need to
everybody.
go on. We need to go on.
I absolutely understand your issue, and I give you my commitment. I will speak to Diane about this issue.
Dr. Black, thank you for being here. I have a more general question for Congresswoman Black. We've learned from you that she was active in the Tennessee Senate and House, and of course we know her credentials at the federal level. We're heading a budget committee, and pro-Trump, had a lot of experience. Give us some idea of her credentials to be governor. Of course, you got experience as a CEO, probably a COO. As governor, she's going to be more about the chief operating officer. And a couple biggies are going to be, of course, healthcare, care, and education. So could you give us a little more insight into her credentials to handle those things?
Well, first of all, she knows what legislation is about and how to lobby. But let me tell you this too, and this is the question I really want to ask of Bill Lee or Randy Boyd, who keep saying they enjoy the advantage by not coming into, not being a governor. Let's say they get elected, and they're going to have to hire somebody to run their company. Do you think they're going to hire somebody who knows nothing about their business? Are they going to hire somebody who knows nothing about dog fences? They're going to hire somebody that knows nothing about HVAC? They don't know who the clients are, they don't know who the customers are, they don't know how to bill, they don't know how to look at the income statement, the balance sheet. Diane has, I'll give you the example of what the difference is. Being the spouse of a congressman means, number one, I'm in a big minority. There are only there's a handful of us in Congress. But having a wife who then becomes budget chair is even a bigger minority, if you can say such a thing. And I listened to Diane last year, earlier this year, when she was asked by Paul Ryan and Kevin McCarthy to pass a budget. Now, Tom Price, who preceded Diane, did not get a budget passed. And everybody, when Diane took that role, said, you can't pass a budget. You'll never get a budget passed. So Diane's got 21 members on her committee that are Republicans, and she had to get all their votes to get a budget out of the budget process. And I'm listening to one half the conversation for about 4 months as she's negotiating with these 21 people. And you've got the Freedom Caucus, you've got the Wednesday Caucus, you've got people who are just independent-minded. And I'm listening to half of that conversation for months as she's nudging these people along to get the budget out of the budget committee. Nobody thought she could do it. The other thing is, Kevin McCarthy and Paul Ryan said, we want you to pass a budget that saves $12 billion. $1 billion for each of the departments of government. And Diane said, no, we're going to do better. And she got her committee together. And at the end of the day, when she passed the budget unanimously by all 21 of her members that were Republican, they had a budget that saved most conservative budgets since Reagan, $220 billion in savings. Now you had to deal with all 12 departments of the government. She had to deal with all 21 members. She had to then go to the floor and lobby this bill. But I don't know if most of you understand that passing that budget was the key that went into the door that opened the door to tax reform. That's what created tax reform. That's why she was with the president today. She was one of 8 members of Congress with the president today talking about the next step in that tax reform. When Diane was in the state legislature, she went in under Jimmy Napius, Speaker of the House, Wilder as Lieutenant Governor, Democrat controlled. And she would bring up great bills, great ideas. They'd be put into the hopper. The Democrats would defeat them, and then they come back the next year with her ideas. And they pass it. And she tolerated that. She didn't mind. Good policy is good policy. She wanted it passed. You may not know that Diane passed the first anti-bullying bill in the United States, which became the model for all the states. She did the SJR 127, as I mentioned, but she's done a lot for elder care and for a lot of other applications. I mean, the bills that she's passed, I can't cite them and quote them all to you today, but she has a number of bills she passed here at the state level that have been models for other states. When she went to Congress as a freshman in 2010, she went on the Ways and Means and Budget, which is very unusual for a freshman. There are people who wait their whole career hoping to get on Ways and Means Budget. But she's also, her first term in Congress, she passed the first repeal of part of Obamacare to save all of us $14 billion. And she was the only freshman who passed a bill. She understands how government works. She understands how you need to lobby, how you need to negotiate. You know, I was a CEO of 1,000 employees. If I told you to do something, I expect you to do it. I don't expect to negotiate with you. Now, I might on occasion, but if it's important and it needs to be done, I just tell you to do it. That's what CEOs do, typically. You don't sit and negotiate for 3 or 4 months. Usually, if you're a CEO, you moved on to 20 other items or issues after you didn't get what you wanted the first time you told somebody to do something. So now it's, Diane has a tremendous amount of experience. The reason why National Right to Life, all these organizations are endorsing her because they see her as a leader. But more importantly, they see her as a Christian leader. She stands for Judeo-Christian values. She's a woman of strong faith. As I said, she brought me to my faith. I began my journey at the age of 35. And I'm still on that journey, of course we all are. But, you know, she combines a very high level of good reason, good logic. She loves policy, she hates politics, but she does love policy, and she has been involved in a great deal of policy. On the issue of the opioid crisis, as a nurse and a healthcare professional, she knows that issue with regard to education. Although we all celebrate college graduation, we have stopped focusing on vocational education. We need to get children job ready coming out of high school. A lot of kids don't go to college. A lot of kids don't need to go to college. There are great jobs out there in the right skill, with the right skill set. Earn and learn is something that we need to do where kids, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, they go out there interns or learning a skill or a craft or a trade, and they can come out of high school. They don't have to go to college. Most kids that are going to college don't even know what they want to be. All they do is they collect debt. I mean, I was hiring people in my laboratory who were selling shoes when I found them in shoe stores, but they had a biology degree. They didn't know what they wanted to be. They got a degree, they didn't quite know what it was about, how to go about getting a real job. But on education, on jobs, certainly we're a state that's growing rapidly. We want to have a robust economy here, but we always talk about economic development, about bringing in these big companies from the outside. We also need to look at the companies that are founded here. Let's look at those that are home-born, and let's support these companies in the middle. Let's not just have some guy that's in charge of economic development put a mark on the wall and say, hey, look what I did. Let's nurture and support the local businesses who many times are burdened with regulation or don't even know what services are available from the state government to assist them. One of the things I found at Aegis, because it was right around the corner for me, was jobs training. You can get a tax credit if you take full advantage of the state's tax credit for jobs training. And you can do that as a small business, but I was in business for probably 15 years before I discovered that. I sure could have used those tax credits early before we became a really successful company.
We got another question right up
Yes.
here.
Thank you for coming, sir, and thank you for that great background on your life. I appreciate that you brought up the Revolutionary War era. There was indeed a long train of abuses But the shot that was fired around the world was over gun control. The redcoats were coming for the powder and the muskets, plain and simple. So my question is, where does your wife stand on constitutional carry? For keeping the licensing scheme and the revenue collected with it. It helps firearms carriers to cross state lines for reciprocity. However, free men should have the right, and the duty to carry a weapon for defense of themselves and those less able around them. So I'm interested to hear your wife's position on constitutional carry. Thank you, sir.
Certainly, thank you for the question. I think the evidence is very clear. Where you have carry permits, there's less crime. Makes a lot of sense. I don't think there is any doubt that a armed citizenry provides great protection for everyone. So I can't give you the exact answer maybe you would like here, but I will tell you, Diane, is for minimal gun laws or removing as many gun laws as certainly, we have to deal with mental health issues.
I know the answer. Her official policy is, if the legislature passes it, she will sign it, and her administration will not oppose it. That's the official campaign, that's the official
Okay. But I will just say, I can speak to the conversation she and I have. And Diane was bugged on Vanderbilt's campus in 1994 by 3 black males who came out of the projects. And it was traumatic. And they broke her cheekbone when they punched her in the face, wrenched her back, which still bothers her today. But no, we're, in my business, at our business at Aegis Sciences, I probably had 50 people carrying on premises. I wanted my employees armed. If something happened, they're going to react a whole lot faster than the local police. And I didn't want my other employees harmed. So all my military veterans or anybody that had carry permits, I allowed carrying right on the property. And I wanted them there. I felt a whole lot better about that. I also allowed them, when they qualify and get their carry permit, I'd have them put their targets up on their office doors. Now, my mistake was I brought in some investors from Boston. As soon as I left, they had them all taken down and they put up no guns allowed signs. No. We are foolish. In fact, Diane and I founded an organization a few years back called Second Vote. And the idea is your first vote is the ballot box, the second vote is the dollar you spend every day. We do research on corporate activism. On our website, we have a gun that's had a camera on it now for 1 year. And we're waiting for that gun to commit a crime. So it now has 365 days, crime-free days of that gun. But you can go on Second Vote's website, and you can take a look at that gun, and it hasn't harmed anybody. It's done nothing malicious. Guns do not kill. As a Vietnam veteran, I'm going to get on the soapbox. As a Vietnam veteran, the worst thing we did out of Vietnam was do away with the draft. We need young men to go back into the military, handle a weapon, fire a weapon, qualify a weapon. Weapons are okay. People are the problem, not the gun. Sorry.
Another question right here.
Yes.
Dr. Black, this is a question for you. I'm probably the only guy in here that's glad you're here. And for the congressman. On the morning of November 1st, 2016, my daughter was obliterated by a defective Lindsay X-Lake guardrail at Terminal, the state of Tennessee, has since spent close to $5 million removing. NBC in Washington just recently reported that a United States Marine killed in uniform, in line of duty, who is now buried in Arlington, is the 32nd person killed by that same product. One, for you, what kind of case law do you know of that supports criminal prosecution in the defective product case? The second thing is, tomorrow afternoon, I am meeting with the United States Attorney, and I would like the Congressman's support for DOJ to open a criminal investigation into the product that killed my daughter and 32 other people, and support for an investigation by the United States Department of Transportation's Office of Inspector General.
First of all, I'm sorry for your loss. I've heard this case before. I've heard your loss. In addition to all my criminal-related work, I have worked in civil product liability cases. In fact, I've been an expert witness probably over 1,000, well over 1,000 times on product liability-related cases. I will tell you they're difficult. They're very hard. My problem with the DOJ and with people in the DOJ, and this is just Dave telling you the truth. You can get a United States attorney to charge a Major League Baseball player, and I was a consultant of MLB and NFL and basketball and all that, but you can get a United States attorney to charge a baseball player for the use of anabolic steroids and spend $50 million prosecuting him. Because he's trying to make a name for himself and he wants to get elected and something. Remember Barry Bond? I was Barry Bond's expert witness. And they spent over $50 million prosecuting him. And yet a case like this, if it doesn't make the headlines, if they can't get their picture in the newspaper, I don't know. I am so soured, and it is a swamp. The president is absolutely right. It's a swamp, and it goes beyond Russia collusion and all that. The people in Washington, D.C., and I've been a spectator now up close since 2010. There's a great book out there called The Ruling Class by Cordevillo. The Ruling Class connects a lot of dots. But Washington, D.C. is filled with people who believe they're entitled. And getting them to represent us is very difficult. And I go do it, go charge hard. We can get the word to Diane about what you're about to do. I will just say from my experience in dealing with the DOD, DOJ, I've testified in court martials, I've been involved in a lot of these things, and also product liability at the federal level. Usually you get an attorney somewhere really engaged in a case, but he thinks it's going to end up on the front page. And not to say that there aren't really good folks there, but I'm pretty sour. I'd like to see people serve for the reason that they're supposed to serve, take the oath, believe the oath, stand by the oath, live by the oath. I took an oath as a Marine. I still believe in the oath I took as a young man. Yeah. But I am, got to tell you, inside that belt, if I could do it, I would take Washington, D.C. and tear it apart and spread it across the country. Because there's just too much bad stuff going on in Washington, D.C. And I'm glad my wife's from home in Tennessee. Yes.
Dr. Black, thank you very much for coming tonight, and I really appreciate your opening with a history lesson about our founding as a Christian nation. And one of the issues that's concerned me for many, many years, probably over 3 decades now, is the condescending attitude that has come to patriots, like I consider myself to be, on the issue of border enforcement and illegal immigration. I've heard numbers ranging from the average benefits that a illegal immigrant will receive from our government largesse taxpayer is in the neighborhood of $40,000 per person. And that may be small. We seem to, over these decades, be patronized continually as we come forward and tell our legislators, we want our border secured. We know that when walls are sufficiently built, like San Diego was a good example with Mr. Congressman Duncan when he was representing the San Diego district, he demonstrated with the proper prototype of a wall that it made a huge difference in the number of illegal crossings. We have European countries now, Hungary, I believe, is one as example, that has a wall, enforces it, and they're controlling their borders. As President Trump has said, if you don't have good borders, you can't have a country. I believe that I want to see our next governor have internalized the angst and the intensity of the feelings that our citizens have about seeing our border secured, seeing illegals who are in our midst rounded up, analyzed for whether they vote or state a visa, whether they're criminal aliens, and deported. I saw a clip that was put out there by a Boyd website that had Diane on camera. And the question was posed to her, can we do a wall? The way she rolled her eyes, the way she shrugged, and almost dismissively, in my opinion, from watching it, suggested that it was foolishness to have walls built of the kind that many, many Tea Party patriots and the Tea Party movement mobilized because we saw this big, big problem in addition to spending. I want to have some assurances that a vote that I cast for Representative Black, becoming Governor Black, will not only vigorously support the efforts to stop the illegal immigration problems in our state, but also be one of the governors like Greg Abbott, who makes it his mission to go after sanctuary cities, to actually do everything he can from the governor's mansion in Texas to make this a priority for his administration. Could you speak to her on that particular issue and whether it was a creative editing effort on part of the
NBC? You think NBC might have edited that?
Maybe, but I also it's very possible. But I saw the facial expression. I saw her. I heard her with her own words.
No, but here's
what she felt about that.
No, in that snippet, what she's saying is, are you going to build a wall in the Rio Grande River? That's what she said. That's what they cut out. You can't build a wall in the Rio Grande River. You need an alternative technology for the Rio Grande River. You can build a wall where you can build a wall on dry land. But you've got natural barriers there that are natural barriers. And that's what she was saying, but they cut the tape. Katie's married to John Molnar. John Molnar and I know each other. I tried to reach out to John to get Katie to get the unedited tape. I can't get it. NBC's not going to call it out. But I got to tell you, I've been on every major news outlet there is, and I've been on BBC and all over the world. And they cut stuff all the time to tell you what they want. I would tell you, the media has never been kind to Diane. Never. In fact, when Diane was first in the Tennessee State Legislature, the local newspaper used to take her press releases and change the name to the local Democrat, Joanne Graves, and give all the attributes to Joanne Graves. For years we've been telling people the media is unfair, the media is biased. One of the great services that Donald Trump has done is he revealed this entirely. In Diane's budget, she funded that wall. She has always been for the wall. She has never wavered from that. If you follow, the organization called Numbers follows immigration-related votes. She gets an A+. They hardly ever give anybody an A+. So that tape was edited. Sure, she's rolling her eyes because she had just said you can't build a wall in the Rio Grande River. And there are other natural barriers there. But absolutely. I mean, she's been down there. She knows the problem. And I think anybody who's got any degree of patriotism or just downright common sense would say, absolutely, we've got to protect our borders. We bring Guatemala on a mission trip with Dr. Bill Taylor, who's a dentist. We went through customs in Guatemala City, and somehow Bill got out of the airport without getting his passport stamped. They sent federal troops out to arrest him and throw him into a Guatemala prison. And the only reason we didn't get Bill the only reason we kept Bill out of prison, we've been going down there so many years we knew the president of Guatemala. But Bill was headed to prison because he didn't get his passport stamped. Other countries enforce their borders. If you go to Second Vote, our website, there are 7 issues we score in Second Vote: life, marriage, Second Amendment, immigration, education, religious liberty, and extreme environmentalism. You go to Second Vote, you see what we have to say on all these issues. There's a play here. It's the Clintons, it's the Bushes, it's the globalists to do away with borders. Doing away with borders creates chaos and disruption. Chaos is the fertile field for tyranny. That's what this is about. That's what these people are about. Absolutely, as governor, Diane's going to enforce every single immigration law. We have said, and she said for years, they did pass a law here in Nashville, in the legislature, where we can't have a sanctuary city. But I'll tell you what, there had to be a lot of pressure put on Beth Barlow to get that done. That didn't happen easily. And I will tell you also, there was a lot of old-time Democrats who got upset in Nashville about Megan Perry wanting to make Nashville a sanctuary city. There were good old-fashioned Democrats who stood up too. But she will enforce all immigration law. And the other thing is, illegal immigration is tied to sex trafficking.
Right.
Human trafficking. This is not a single issue. None of these things are just one issue. We all need it, as Christians here, how do we tolerate sex trafficking? We've got Nashville with 3 interstates going through. We are a major hub for sex trafficking. We've got to deal with that issue. It's sinful that we don't. And so anyway, it's a very important issue, but it has other issues associated with it. So thank you for the question. Yes, that tape is being played, and yes, it gives a completely false impression, but that's not what we're trying.
Okay, we got to have one more question, and it's right here.
Thank you for coming tonight, Doctor. I do have a question. everybody here understands the Constitution. We all believe in the First and Second and every other amendment that we have, the right to worship as we see fit. But we definitely have a problem with radical imams and radical mosques. We know that Austria does not have our Constitution, but just last month they ordered all mosques closed and radical imams who are foreign-born kicked out of the country. They are experiencing and reacting to the Muslim issue, the radicalization. What would the congressman do as governor to protect the First Amendment while at the same time keeping a guard against radical Islam in the state?
I think she probably followed the advice of George Washington. In 1776, Harvard was 140 years old. This nation was not brand spanking new. George Washington, you could find his quote, I have it in a book I've written, but don't have it here with me. But George Washington said, the door's not open to everybody. You're only welcome if you embrace the American idea. You're only welcome if you have a skill to offer. You're not coming here to live off of those who are creating this country. So, the real issue here is the Muslim, quote, religion is as much politic as, quote, religion. And they're not assimilating, and they don't assimilate anywhere they go. Now, that's not completely true because the Kurds do. Kurdish are Muslim, but the Kurds do assimilate. And I had about 30 working for me at Aegis, and these were people who are very patriotic. I watched their kids grow up, and by the time those kids became teenagers, they were like any other kid. They were assimilating. But there's too many that don't. And we've got to figure out the good from the bad, but we also have to find out, are you coming to this country because of what we are, who we are? You know, we're the only country in the world that has a dream. There's no Libya dream. There's no Egyptian dream. There's no French dream. We only have an American dream in the world. People should come here for a reason. And that's for the opportunity we provide, the respect that everyone affords everyone else. We've forgotten e pluribus unum. When the left came up with this idea of diversity, what's the root word? It's divide. Diversity is all about division. We should go back to e pluribus unum. Let's find what we have together in common as opposed to celebrating what we have as a difference. But we have got to address this issue. This is why Diane is also a big supporter of Trump and the wall, but at all levels of immigration. She was behind the president completely about stopping any travel from the Muslim countries that he identified. We are at risk from these people. They've been coming to this country unlimited without restriction. And we've got to stop this foolishness. We need to protect our sovereign borders, as all nations have the right to do. And people should come here to become Americans, not to remain as something else. It's as simple as that.
So then she will work to keep this state from being like Dearborn, Michigan.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I've got family still up in Michigan. We went up to Dearborn, Michigan. Don't go to Dearborn, Michigan unless you're going to go out there with enough troops to clean it out. Because it is absolutely offensive to me as someone who grew up in that area.
And she has a plan to keep that from happening here.
Oh, absolutely.
Outstanding.
Well, not only that, we've got to look at the textbooks. I mean, this is, please remember, it's taken us 100 years to get to where we are. The progressive movement began at the beginning of the last century. They've been at this for 100 years. We're not going to take this ground back tomorrow. As a Marine in Vietnam, I learned it's better to hold the ground you got than to take back the ground you lost, because taking back the ground you lost is bloodier. But we got to take the ground back, and we got to hold the ground we got. The Supreme Court is the place to start. But we got to do it state by state, community by community. But people have got to stand up. You know, it can't be just a Diane Black. You're asking Diane Black to do this, absolutely. But by golly, everybody's got to stand up and say this is wrong. Because when Diane goes on NBC or C-SPAN or whatever on television, her phones light up at her congressional office with the haters calling and screaming at her staff because they want to discourage them, they want to run them out. We've had campaign workers run off of our campaigns before from the haters. I got to tell you, folks, one of the reasons why they're winning is because the Christians who stand up alone. And all the Christians watch and they don't stand with them. If they had more targets, they wouldn't be able to keep taking out the ones that are standing alone. We've all got to speak up. You've got to get your family to speak up, your kids to speak up, your neighbors to speak up, anybody you know to speak up. We can take this country back, Trump's showing it. But our founding fathers gave us the opportunity to amend the Constitution. We need a balanced budget act. We term limits. We need to take this country back, and a part of that's going to have to be through amendments. But we can do it if we are motivated to do that. And don't just think about it every 2 years of election time.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank Dr. Black. I've got two announcements to make, and also Jimmy Matlock would like to have a couple of minutes. First, if you haven't paid your server, since we had so many people here, they have not been able to get to everybody. Please stay seated or see the server so the Tea Party doesn't have to pay for your meal, because that's what happens. If somebody doesn't pay for it, the Tea Party pays for it. And also, we have Act for America coming July the 26th, not this Thursday, but next Thursday, has a meeting, and it's Elaine Brown, author of 2 books, so she'll be talking there.